and the driver started to finally regain some speed. The traffic seemed to be breaking up somewhat, permitting the driver to make up some time, and Alejandro began to relax. They'd get there on time. It was only 20 blocks from the hotel to the restaurant where the meeting was to take place, but they still had to pass through Times Square and 7th Avenue by Madison Square Garden.
"Don't these people work?"
Alejandro grumbled as he began fiddling with his cell phone. 3 texts from his manager and 2 from his agent. He was lucky. It was usually triple that amount. A slow day.
"Must be a Tuesday,"
he thought grimly, the only slow day of the week. And still, he had meetings and appointments and emails and text messages. When had life started to get so crazy? He asked himself. He heard the crash before he actually recognized the jolt for what it was. The driver had slammed on his brakes, the car screeching to a halt, but not before the thud on the hood of the car made it apparent that something had been hit. Alejandro fell forward, despite the fact that the limo had not been driving over 20 miles an hour, if that. When he picked himself up from the floor and sat back on the black leather seat, he tried to assess what had happened.
"You all right back there?"
the driver asked, his voice shaking and his face pale.
Sí,
Alejandro said, trying to calm himself.
"An accident. What were the odds of that? And why today of all days?"
He glanced around, but didn't see another vehicle in front of the limousine.
"What happened?" "Hit someone. A jaywalker,"
the driver replied before picking up his cell phone and dialing 911. The crowd was already gathering around the front of the car. People. There were always crowds of people around when he wanted them, but especially when he didn't. This was one of those moments. Alejandro exhaled loudly. Now he'd definitely be late. There was no way that he could get out of the limousine in this crowd without being recognized, and that would be the kiss of death. He could see the headlines already. Viper strikes pedestrian in Manhattan. He tried to do a quick calculation of how the next hour or 2 would pan out. The police would come and want to interview him. The crowd would gather, the traffic would be thick, and it would become a mob scene. He'd have no choice but to get out. Alejandro sighed, reaching into his suit pocket for his black sunglasses. If he had to get out and face the crowd, better to do it early on, rather than look like he was avoiding it. And when the inevitable lawsuit happened, it would look better if he had seemed concerned. With that, the decision was made. The driver turned around, just about to say something, when he noticed Alejandro reaching for the door handle.
"What are you doing, sir?"
There was panic in his voice.
You can't get out, sir. They'll notice you. There will be a mob."
Alejandro nodded.
"Exactly, but if I don't, that will be even worse than if I get out now."
It would be a different headline then. Viper indifferent to struck pedestrian in Manhattan. That would never do. So, ignoring the concern of his driver, he pulled at the door handle and flung the door back, careful to not hit anyone who was standing nearby. It took a second, maybe 2, for the beginning of the murmuring to trickle through the crowd. He heard it, the gentle hum of recognition. Whispers, looks, people pointing, and then the name. Viper. They were already talking about him. Out of the corner of his eye, Alejandro could see the cell phones lifted above the crowd so that people could take photos. He knew better than to react. Instead, he ignored it and hurried to the front of the car. He pushed past several people, making certain to say, "Excuse me," as he did so. Manners, his mother had always taught him. No matter what the situation, a man had to be civilized and mannerly. He wondered where running over pedestrians in New York City ranked in Alicia's list of mannerly behavior. When he finally made his way to the front of the limousine, he noticed 2 men leaning over a woman.
"Is she all right?"
Alejandro asked, pulling at his pants as he knelt down beside them.
"She's hurt bad,"
one man said, glancing over his shoulder at Alejandro. He frowned, as if recognizing him, but returned his attention to the woman.
"But is she responding?"
Alejandro asked. He reached out for the woman's hand. Holding it in his, he was glad to feel her fingers twitch.